This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and the things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat, how to move, and you can change the thoughts. You've got to flip 50 with the life and the energy you love in this second half. How often have you had a question answered before you knew to ask the question by listening to a conversation? I'm not talking exactly about eavesdropping, but you are invited to listen to a conversation today between myself and Annette, a brand new Flipping 50 virtual member. Her questions, as we communicated about whether Flipping 50 and the membership was a match for her or not, her questions were so on target with many of you. Many of our brand new members and those people who are writing in or messaging us on social media about what's happening for them and what they don't quite understand and why it's not working, that I felt talking to her would be like talking to you, or that's what it would feel like for you. Like I feel like she got me, she's asking my questions. So then I met her, and she has this endearing accent I had no idea about. So, Annette, thanks for that. I'm a sucker for an accent. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to take this journey with you.
So we are going to essentially, listeners, do a little coaching session, kind of an introduction so that I can learn what's going on, what the biggest questions are, and hopefully before we jump off, my thanks to Annette is giving her some wins today, and that hopefully will carry over for you so you too have some questions answered that maybe you didn't even know to ask. So, Annette, let's just open up this conversation. By now, it's been a couple of weeks because we're both very busy about what you asked when you got started, and you were explaining to me what's happening for you. So set up a little background for everybody listening on, what's true of you right now today, what's going on, what made you go looking, and find me.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thank you, Deborah. So basically why I started Google searching, everything over the age of 50, I tried to understand. I work in a predominantly female type of arena, and women talk. And we got together, and a lot of times when I meet new women that are also in this 50-plus bracket, we all appear to have some or all of the same issues. I've noticed fellow friends walking around with small fans. I have noticed them constantly opening fridges and shutting fridges because they're just in one of those hot spells. And I'm finding myself going down that path, and it just recently started for me. I am 51, soon to be 52, and I am now experiencing some of the things that I have heard mumblings about over the last few years. It kind of worried me because I don't particularly want to walk around with a fan, and I get how hot they get because I can see the sweat dripping off them. And I'm thinking, is there a better option? Is there another way? I've always been quite cognizant of everything that I put into my body. I have been aware that being healthy is a better option. And I feel I've done all the right things. So I think I thought I might be a little immune to this, but come to find out I'm not. It's starting, and I panicked. So then I Google and I go, there's more like me and my fellow friends out there. And I thought, does anybody have this answer? So there's the Chinese medicines, tried them unsuccessfully. The yin and the yang balance, it didn't quite. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff in those herbs, but wasn't quite working for me. I've tried more exercise. I've tried less exercise. I'm finding that my defined abs that I've worked extremely hard to have my entire life are just getting some fluff, and I've not done anything different. I still do my workouts. I still eat very healthy. I'm still always, watching what I eat, thinking about how this is going to affect me, and I'm just going, what is going on? And it's happening to me. And now I thought I was just not going to have to endure it. So help is what I was looking for. And I found you.
Fantastic. Okay. Such a great synopsis. And I think most likely everybody listening can identify with at least some piece of that. So talk to me specifically. If I could unpack something in listening, my antenna, if you will, goes up when I hear certain things. So you said, things are changing, and yet why is that? Because nothing I'm doing is changing. And so the anecdote, of course, I think for all of us listening is that you do need to change, like clearly, but the problem is like you're at this open door and it's like, or hallway with many doors, which one do I go through? How do I change? Like what is the optimal given, especially you have tried less and tried more, and there is an undulating change that happens that may require you to be kind of always on the alert for, okay, here are my signs and symptoms. Here's how I respond to that. And if not day to day, it may be week to week, that it's going to change. So we need to be aware of that. And I want to pick apart, you said I eat healthy. Can we open that up and unpack it? What does that look like?
Cool. So for me, I think I have followed some of the trends. I believe that at some point in my life, I did tend to believe that I should eat complex carbohydrates. I should eat less refined sugars. I started off, we were a little conscious already of the fact that diet sodas weren't so healthy for us. Even when I was young, my mum kind of mentioned that off and on occasion. So I knew that the soda route wasn't going to work for me, so I omitted sodas at a very young age. I then dabbled with a little bit of wine here and there, but fortunately for me, it wasn't something that worked for me. I just couldn't get it. It just didn't work. So I decided that alcohol was not a good option for me, and that saved me a bunch of calories, I've come to find out, so was grateful for that. And then there was the vegetarian, nobody should eat meat, period, where then it started to be red meat was okay and the white meat was bad, so I went down that road. So as I sit here today, I have actually eliminated a lot of foods. I do try to eat a lot of protein. I do. This is why I think I really keyed into what I saw on the pages of the internet with you, was that, yes, I do believe that protein is essential. I do believe that carbohydrates should be minimized. I'm right on par with the healthy oils. I agree 100%. I've always eaten lately, the last 5-6 years, some healthy oils. There was a time when I thought oils were terrible for me and refused to eat them, but they've come into my diet slowly and found that that was beneficial. At some point, I actually did feel better and my hair looked better having some oil, but it did have to be obviously the healthy olive oils. And that I read about the coconut oil syndrome, exactly like you said. There was good out there, then there was bad press immediately following. It did leave me a bit confused, didn't know where to go with coconut oil, but then I read your stuff and it sort of made more sense again, that everything in proportion. So I don't do dairy. I just don't care for dairy at all. I don't drink alcohol. I most certainly do try to eat healthy proteins. Egg whites I'm a big fan of. A little bit of chicken and a little bit of fish. I still don't go to red meat, just by choice for me. And I've found that living like that and just introducing a little bit of the oils, not a whole lot of sugars. I've never really been a big sweet lover. And it's kind of worked. It really has. For what I look like today, I look okay for my age. I'm proud of where I've got to, but I feel like it's just slipping fast and I don't understand why, and I would like to maintain it, but don't know where to change it.
Great description. Yeah, and so you really hit on a couple of things. So sugars, you hit on dairy. Talk to me about gluten and wheat in your diet. Where are they?
So, okay, I love rice cakes. I think I'm the only person out there that likes rice cakes. I'm a weirdo.
You could come over here. Yeah, we can have a little party.
Okay. I do love my rice cakes. Again, the carbohydrate thing was one of those things where it was always encouraged. I love Ezekiel bread. I'm probably butchering the name. Ezekiel.
No, yeah. Yes, you got it.
Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not even so sure.
Yeah.
But I do love that bread. Live seeds in the freezer make complete and utter sense to me, because the bread that I keep out for kids, generally the mold develops and I'm like, what is going on? How does bread get like this? So I'm an advocate for the breads that live in the fridge as opposed to the ones that sit on the counter. I look at ingredients, I read labels, I've kind of gone off, I would say, the last 2, 3, 4 years. I've tried to limit the intake of that. So my carbohydrates really come from potatoes. I do the rice cake. I do some rice, generally brown rice. And quinoa does have some, although mainly protein, but it does also consist of some. And so do your beans. Beans do have a lot of protein, but they do also have some carbs in them. So that would be my main part of my diet, where I get my carbs from.
Okay, great. So really, though, I don't hear gluten and wheat, although the Ezekiel bread is sprouted wheat. But otherwise, you're really not getting any, correct?
Right. I would say that would not probably be my issue, correct?
Great. Okay. So, and I know you've talked about protein being important to you. Do you have an idea, and do you have a goal in mind as far as how many grams of protein you're getting per meal? Do you know the answer to that?
I could not probably answer that, no. I don't know how much an egg white omelette would have per se. I don't know what a serving would look like. No, I wouldn't. I'd have to look that up on your page.
No.
I think it's
that's great. Okay.
Yeah, you said you had to eat like 40, wasn't it, or something? I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah, I hear homework coming. Here it is.
Okay, got it.
So, and this is a great spot. So this is exactly how we find it. So, and there's no arbitrary total yet that I would give you.
Okay.
But I would want you to say, come back to me, in 3 days or 5 days and say, I have kept track. And this is the question to ask Dr. Google, because they'll tell you anything. And you can either label read or figure out, here was, my 3-day log. Here's how much protein I ended up having at breakfast and at lunch and at dinner. And then we know, okay, that's our starting point. So let's look at how we can change that a little bit. And the goal ultimately for most women over 50 who may be struggling with a little bit more fat, a little bit less muscle, maybe less muscle tone, or even skin tone is between 25 and 30 grams of protein. And it's probably better to shoot for 30. And then if you fall a little bit short, that's where you land. If we talk ranges, if we were talking salaries and I was the boss and we talked, 25 to 30,000, I'm thinking 25. You're thinking 30, right? So it's better. Right. Let's just get clear on that from the beginning. Shoot for the big number. And if you fall short, you're probably within a few grams and you're still getting full benefits. So rather than say, okay, start shooting for that, I'd rather have you say, let's look at what you're getting now, and then say, okay, so here's how I feel, here's the results I'm getting, and then we can start to close that gap and say, what kind of difference is that making after a few weeks? You may feel a difference. It may be, this was never my expectation when I started working with this based on the science. But many women will come back and say, I actually feel so much better. I have so much more energy. And that's not necessarily a typical response about increasing protein. But for a lot of women who've been really falling short, it is a big benefit. And so who doesn't want that, right? More energy in 2019 and 20 is always welcome. So that's what I would start, really do a food log, but for the purpose of not just looking overall at it, but look at every meal. And we'll Google, what's the protein content. So a full egg, yolk and white, each have 6 grams of protein in it. So egg white only is probably going to be closer to maybe 3. You're not going to get full amount. And so just to give you an idea, that's a lot of eggs, right? If you're going to reach, and nobody would suggest that, but it's going to take more to get you, where you really want to go. But starting just to look at, here's where I am, here's how I'm feeling, here's the results I'm getting. Then let's change it and tweak it and kind of reassess after a few weeks. Now, how do I feel? What's the difference been? And we follow that blueprint not with a arbitrary hit this quota, but with a how's it working for me kind of bend.
Right. And that's what it has to be because, the formulas for everyone is slightly different. I agree 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, okay, so there's your first piece of homework. Let's tackle the other side, which is the exercise. Tell me a little bit just of a typical description of a week, and then we may dive in and look at specifically each workout. What does that look like?
So that's also evolved, I guess, over the years to what your body's capable of, and also the things that have become trends I have kind of followed along. There was the aerobics era, and I definitely did my fair share of Jane Fonda's, and that was where it all began. And then I was very pro-bicycle for probably a good 5 years of my life, and that was the big thing. Then,
was that spinning or riding outdoors?
No, it was riding outdoors in Australia in the start. When I was in my 20s, it was more about riding outdoors on a bicycle, and that was kind of where it was at for me then. But then you're quite right. I did end up with there was that whole spinning era. I went crazy on the bicycle. Yep, I remember those days too. So I would say if I could just condense it to the last probably 5 years without boring everyone, I think I did a lot of Pilates the last 5 years on Pilates bed. I love Joseph Pilates' concept of using some of your own body as your weight, and those particular different types of stretch cords that he uses also I find to be beneficial. And again, it worked. Trust me, it worked. But then the same thing doesn't. It seems like I've hit a plateau. I used to run for days. I was like, go my pile. Like, honestly, you could never stop me from running. But I'd run slow. It wasn't a fast pace, but it'd just be, I was running and running and running, and that's what I did. And loved it. Got in the zone and would run. But then my knees didn't like that anymore. And I just felt like you addressed. And again, I think it's right on the head. I noticed it myself. The more I exerted my body, instead of when I was young, it used to love working out hard, I felt like instead of my body loving those big, hard workouts, my mind still loved them. But my body said to me, okay, you're actually stressing me out, so I'm just going to produce a whole bunch of cortisol, and you're going to just have to deal with that. And now we've learned cortisol is not good for us. So I'm thinking, well, that's why it wasn't good running for days anymore. It just didn't work because it used to be okay on my body. But now I think my body doesn't appreciate that kind of impact. I think it doesn't want all that. So do I do yoga? But then yoga doesn't make me feel like I do exercise. And then I go to the gym because I'm lifting weights and everybody's there and they're all bodybuilders, and I'm like with my 5-pound bells thinking, what am I doing? It's just, I don't know where I belong. I really don't.
Okay, so given me the last, say, 7 days, what have you done day 1, day 2, day 3? So what's really the synopsis right now of what's happening?
Okay, so my smartwatch tracker tells me I've got to do my 10,000 steps every day. I do my 10,000 steps every day, regardless of what's going on. Put the kids in front of the TV. I'll go for a walk. I've got to get my steps in. I've just got that in my head. So I do reach those steps, generally speaking, by walking. I'm in love with this new thing, and I don't know how you feel about this, but rebounding. I read again on Google. It's raised my children, too. Google has raised the kids as well. I went to Google, and I'm looking for lower impact, but yet, and I noticed rebounding. I don't know how you feel about that, but I noticed rebounding. And they did some NASA reports on it, and I was like, this is the new me. So now I have this rebounder. I bought it at Walmart. It was like $50. It was not anything, But I can actually put it in front of the TV, and I can do my jogging, and I feel like it's a lot less impact, and I'm sort of really loving that. Great way to get the steps. Don't have to worry about it being hot or cold outside. And so I've been doing that also to get my steps. And then weights, I use nothing more than 10 pounds maximum. I dabble with 5 pounds and 10 pounds back and forth. I do arm series. I do a lot of like the Pilates floor mat stuff, but using some of the weight. And I believe in planking. I don't do sit-ups anymore. I agree with you 100% on that too. And that's been over the years. I think that's why I just clicked when I saw you, because I've been reading all these changes for years. I noticed that people have said, okay, sit-ups is not exactly what works entirely for the body. There's also these options that work better, and we should try changing this and that. And I have over the years. And then I read you, and you're right there. You're saying the same thing. And I'm like, that's what I believe too. So I do planking. I do just light weights here and there. And I've got to get my 10,000 steps in, either on the rebounder or walking. That's been my week so far this week.
Got it. Okay. So just a quick throw out of what I think about rebounding. So a couple things. There have been more recent research about how it moves the lymphatic system, can be really good for that. And, of course, for anybody who feels like joints are taking a beating otherwise, and this is much softer. So there is that. The difference, or the thing that you want to consider, anybody who's using it, is just, it's kind of what I call surf and turf. There are some people who need to do lower impact to move more and do it with intensity in a way that doesn't hurt or compromise joints. So either the water, which is often a go-to place for somebody, or like the rebounder, or even elliptical or a bicycle, unweighted or unloaded types of movement, you're not getting the bone density. So that's the one thing you want to think about. Where else am I getting that? Because weight-bearing exercise or weight training exercise are the two things always associated with the bone density. And, over 50, we're all concerned about that because we are going to live long enough where bone density is going to be an issue for all of us. I mean, we won't get around that one. It's a challenge, right? But it's better to live. So let's just start with that. But you want to just think, okay, so what am I doing to offset the time when I, am on a bike, or the offset the time when I'm on the rebounder and I'm not getting the heel strike that I would if I were connecting with the ground. And the same is true of, say, an elliptical. And I think it's sometimes we don't think about that because you're upright and you're on it. So you think, well, it must be weight bearing, but you're not picking up the foot and putting it back down. And so in that instance, you don't get even the equivalent of walking. You're getting less than that. And the same is true if you're doing your water exercise. That said, those are wonderful forms of exercise. So nothing against them. It's just you want to think about when you have this list of, these are my priorities so that I age well, bone density is probably in there. So the answer, like the answer to so many other questions, you all know this is coming, strength training, right? So that you get the best of both worlds. So we can still bring back the powerful impact on the bone and make it respond. So still a great option. And I think your voice changed when you said, I got this rebounder and I'm doing it. It sounded fun. Right? It sounded like I found something that I actually enjoy doing, and that's huge. So I look for that, when I'm talking to somebody, because the last thing we want is to go to the most effective boot camp ever just for the mere reason I want to burn the most calories and burn the most fat. I mean, that's probably not going to end up well for you, right? So I love that you enjoy what you're doing. And so now the thing I want to pick out is, you said I don't lift any more than, say, 10 pounds. Why is that? What's going on with that?
Okay, I truly believe, or have believed, and I'm sure, I think that too much weight, for me, just builds my weight. I feel like I get Hercules arms in 30 seconds when I start pumping heavy iron, in my opinion. I just feel like it makes me bulge.
Okay. So I've never seen you, so to listeners, so that you know this, I've never seen you, never even seen a picture. Would you say of body types, you're more muscular, you're more linear, no shape, or more curvy girl? Which one of those is you?
I'd say lean and muscle.
Okay, which that would have been my guess. So more of what's known in body type as mesomorph, meaning you probably respond very quickly to strength training.
Yeah,
and
I do.
So my goal is not to convince you or persuade you right now that you should do more weight, but it may be that the protocol that you've been doing, as many of us who are over 50 were taught, 3 sets of 10 repetitions is a bulk building protocol. And so, I like to say, how many of you want to go back and slap your high school PE teacher, right, for teaching you that? But that's the best science they had at the moment. And yet, because we learned it at such an impressionable age, it's often what we default to. We still are thinking what we were taught way back when. And lifting heavier weight, fewer repetitions, or going with a lighter weight and doing more repetitions, how you get there doesn't matter. The advantage you have is that you're probably going to respond quicker than anybody else will. But reaching fatigue is still really important to you. So if you're using that lighter weight, you'll just need to do a few more repetitions to reach the last one that you can do with good form at the end of every set, and make sure that you're doing that. And that's perfectly fine. It won't, again, have quite as much impact, positive impact on bone density. So what you can do with weight training to influence and impact lean muscle tissue and support fat burning is one thing, but it won't necessarily, again, have enough impact on the bone density. Heavier weights, fewer repetitions tends to have still the best possible outcome. So just, again, something to be conscious about and think about. But how often are you lifting weights and doing strength training for your whole body, say the legs and the chest and the back and the arms?
I literally do, I would say, between 10 and 15 minutes on each part daily. I do my arms for 10, 15. I do abs for about 10 minutes. I have like these little workouts that I do, button fights. Again, squatting's not my favorite anymore because of the knees. So I do a lot more of down on the floor, just the, I guess, donkey kicks and things like that, if you can picture that. Those kind of exercises.
I can.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
I know Jay finds that too. Yes.
There you go.
Okay, fantastic. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. And we have about 3 minutes, and then we actually have to wrap up. But here's what I want to suggest is, so you are a brand new member of the virtual cafe, so I'm going to have you do something. We talked in the green room before we recorded that, I've been exercising for years, so I don't know if I need those how-to videos. I want you to go and watch the how to squat just to check in. Are you doing it in a way that sets you up optimally so it may feel more comfortable? And you may check that box and just say, no, Deborah, I know what I'm doing, and come back and say it's not really helping. It's not comfortable. But there are a couple substitutes there for still hitting those major muscle groups in a way that won't be taxing on the knees if you need them. Those hip bridges and hamstring curls would be good alternatives to supplement even the donkey kicks, but hit you in a major muscle group way so they affect metabolism much more positively. So kind of go and look at that. And then twice a week. Are you hearing me? Twice a week. The full body routine. Not every day, because you're not allowing yourself to recover. Those muscles get torn during the workout if you're working hard enough, and you should want that recovery day. So you don't want to be lifting every day. You want to do the whole body a couple of times a week and then allow yourself time between.
Wow, okay. That's different thinking for me. Okay.
It is, and it might feel like, oh no, right?
Not doing enough. I'm not doing enough.
Yes. Tell your head to shut up. That's what you're going to have to do. So worst case scenario, you're feeling like, no, I don't know if I can trust that advice. 3 times a week, okay? So at least cutting back and giving yourself some days off. But ultimately for listeners, twice a week is actually best. It's a sweet spot. and then you end up having more energy and more recovery, and you end up working harder, more effectively when you do work because you are recovered. So I want to give you that. And I actually have to jump off because I have a literal coaching client who is going to call in almost in a second. But let me ask you this.
Deborah.
So was this helpful?
Yes, it absolutely was. And I'm excited.
Great.
And I'm glad I joined when I did. And I'm glad it's open right now so I could get in. I'd hate to be trying to get in for another year. I can't. I need it now. I need your help now. So thank you so very much. I really feel like I'm headed down a good path, and I'm not alone, and that makes it a whole lot better.
Awesome. Okay, so there's two pieces of homework. And if you're listening at home and either one or both of these are a good fit for you too, I would recommend, and comment on this episode if it's helpful. But you're going to track just a food log and then go in and look at each of those and Google it or look at labels as you record it to see how many grams of protein am I getting at each meal. Mm-hmm. And then the other one from the exercise side, cut back to doing high-quality strength training 2 or 3 times a week. And let's regroup and talk about what's happening. In 3 weeks, check in again. And let's talk about differences that you've noticed in maybe energy level and or in definition or tone or the way that you're sleeping, because all of those changes would be potential things you might see.
Great. All right, I'm excited. Okay. Ready to do this. Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for doing this in front of a live audience, of course. Listeners, do you have a question? If you do, leave it below the show link at flipping50.com/coach. I love hearing from you. And if this episode and the way we set this up was helpful, please leave a rating in iTunes and then share it with a friend as well as commenting, and surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey. To get the most from this week's episode, check out today's show notes. Again, it's flipping50.com/coach, where selfishly I hope you will come and comment about whether or not this format was something you enjoyed. And what are you waiting for? Start flipping 50 together.